I mean, how important do you believe is it for students to either demonstrate financial ability or the need for financial aid? Or
Because the more time you have, the better research you can do to find the right match, the right university for you.
how do you advise students to approach the application process to the US?
Well, first of all, I think the main message to get across is please don't look at the sticker price.
So, good morning, viewers, and welcome to today's podcast. Good morning, Gulsen.
Good morning.
It's lovely to have you here.
I'm very excited to be here. Thank you. It's my first podcast ever.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
We're proud to have you here on your first podcast. You're here from Education USA.
Yes.
Would you like to start by telling us a little bit about Education USA?
Yeah, of course. So Education USA is a network of advising centers that are located all over the world that are supported by the U.S. State Department. And basically our mission is to give information, free information on studies in the United States, not just any information, but comprehensive, objective, up-to-date information on studies in the U.S. We're not agents. We represent all of U.S. higher education. So if anyone has questions about studying in the United States, we're the people to come to. The Education USA Center in Cyprus is virtual, and it's all Education USA centers. The one in Cyprus is also supported by the U.S. Embassy here.
Lovely, brilliant. And you support students, you support parents, but you also support counsellors like myself.
Of course.
So, I mean, we have a great communication support network between us, which is amazing. Your social media accounts are also extremely informative.
Yeah.
That's great for students to know.
Yeah.
So studies in the US is quite overwhelming for students. I mean, there are thousands of universities to choose from. How do you advise students to approach the application process to the US?
Well, first of all, I think the main message to get across is please don't look at the sticker price. I mean, a lot of students they dismiss the U.S. as an option just from the first price that they see. But really, I don't know if this is a camera, don't do that because there are opportunities to get funding in the United States, and it really is an option if they give it a chance. So how would you approach it? Calmly, obviously. And it's important to start early so that you can do the appropriate research and to prepare in advance to prepare your applications. There is a lot of support. I think the way that you would choose a university really depends on what's important to you. You know, some students, they have a family member maybe in the United States that they want to be close to. Some students need financial aid. Most students need financial aid. So they would look for those kinds of institutions. If they're interested in studying something like engineering, obviously accreditation, which means it's a process that universities and some departments go through to show that they're at the proper standard to give education in certain fields. So, and something like engineering has their own accreditation body. So, if engineering is what they want to study, they would start from there. So, I think the approach that a student should take is to start early. The most important thing is to start early and to think about what's important to them and start from there. Obviously, they will need support from you. You have all the expertise I know here at the GC School of Careers, but we're also available to help students in this journey and to help counselors when they have questions. Right. But the most important thing is, don't be afraid to think of the United States as an option because it really is.
And you said start early. I mean, what in your mind is the appropriate timeline for students who are looking to apply?
Well, so the deadlines to study, to apply to the U.S. begin in November of the year before you're going to start, and they can go on until later on in the year. But generally, January is around the time. From November to January is when the deadlines are. What does that mean to a student? It means that by then they should have already finished choosing where they want to study, filling in their applications, and all of these things take time. So our advice is to start the year before, if possible. So the year before they're going to graduate for the girls, and if they have Army service, before they go to the Army, because the more time you have, the better research you can do to find the right match, the right university for you. And I think that's really important when you're choosing universities, finding the best fit for you, whatever your interests and factors are, as I mentioned before.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the finance part, obviously extremely important to students. I mean, how important do you believe is it for students to either demonstrate financial ability or the need for financial aid? Or how important is it? What role does it play on their application if they're demonstrating one of the two?
Well, if they need financial aid, they need to demonstrate that they need it somehow.
Does it impact their applications so negatively?
Well, it depends on the universities that they're applying to. But if a university is offering financial assistance and a student needs financial assistance, then they should go for it, obviously. But the important thing here is to always be truthful. There's, some students think, well, I can pay for this, but I don't want to, so I'm going to request financial aid. That's not the way to look at it. If you need it, then you be truthful on your application when you're applying for financial assistance. Let them know that you're applying for financial assistance. Of course, there are different ways to apply for financial aid, different forms to fill. Every university has their own process of doing things. But the important thing is to be truthful and don't think of it as something that can hurt you. If you need it, you have to apply for some kind of aid. Yeah. If you don't need it, then...
There's also the merit-based scholarships, however.
Exactly. So merit-based aid does not depend on need. It depends on your merit. So some kind of academic achievement or other kind of achievement, talent or whatever. So finances does not come into play when they're trying to consider students for merit-based aid. But need-based aid is something else. You apply for it because you need it, and you have to demonstrate how much you could, your income and how much you can contribute. And then they have their own calculations of figuring out how much they can give you and how much they can contribute. So I think the details of all of these things, they don't have to worry about it so much. Sometimes I find students wondering about all of the technicalities related to financial aid, but I don't think they should worry so much about it. There is funding out there. Some of it you have to submit a separate application for, so the need-based type of aids. Some merit-based aids also, merit-based scholarships also have different applications. Some you don't even need to do anything for. They just, if they like you, they'll give it to you. And merit-based aid is usually like that, unless it's a huge scholarship, and sometimes they have a separate application process for that.
Brilliant. What would you say are the key elements of an application that admissions tutors look at?
So, as you know, admissions in the United States is a little different, and students here are generally used to the European style of application evaluation. So, for example, in the UK, they specifically tell you what A-levels to take and what grades you need. Same for European universities, and nothing else really matters. In the U.S., it's holistic, which is actually it works well for the students because they're looking at a student as a whole, as an individual. They're looking at the student not only in terms of academics, because obviously there are academic minimum requirements that students have to meet, but they're also looking at that student and who they are and what's unique and interesting about them, and if they get accepted or if they accept this student, what is that student going to do on campus? So the key elements of any U.S. application actually are all equally important because they're looking at all parts of it. So they're looking at the academics, as I said, but they're also looking at what makes a student interesting through the extracurricular activities section of the application. So there is a section on the application of any U.S. university about the activities that a student is involved in. And not only what they're doing, but their actual role in it and their contribution to that. Yeah. So how many hours are they spending per week on that? Are they the leader in that activity? Are they the captain of their team or whatever? So through those kinds of things, also through the reference letters, what the teachers are saying, the U.S. Admissions officers get a better idea of who that person is. So it's not just about academics. It's also about what is interesting about that student. And oftentimes students here, sometimes they're surprised to see, my friend, he had 5 A levels, all A stars and so forth. He didn't get in, but X person got in and his grades were lower. But the thing about the US is it's not all about grades. It's about the whole student.
All-rounded. So being an all-rounded applicant,
of course,
makes for a stronger application.
Yes, because I think that you need to look at it as a two-way street. Students are always kind of selfish in their journey. They're like, I'm going to choose a university that's best for me. But you have to realize that the university is also doing the same thing with the student. They're trying to find the student that best fits their campus and their environment. And what is the student going to contribute to my campus? Are they going to sit and study all day? Well, no, they don't want the student that's just going to stay in their room and do nothing. So they're looking at, it's a two-way street.
Yeah. Students sometimes ask, and they say to me, is it better for us to take one extracurricular activity and really take it as far as we can go? Or is it better for us to do 5 different activities and have different experience to show that we're all rounded, because we know that this is what US universities look for?
I mean, there's no magic number to it, but it's more about the contribution and how you've developed that activity over time. Yeah. So, for example, volunteering one time at the Red Cross is not going to be that effective. It's, the fewer but more substantial is better.
Okay.
But if you have a lot of substantial activities, that's not a bad thing either. But it has to be something that's more long term, and your contribution continues and develops, and you gradually take on a more leadership role perhaps in that activity.
More responsibility, contributing more. And it's not just something students have been involved in a few months before their applications were to be sent.
Yes,
I mean, admissions tutors can understand when students are just taking things on before application.
But of course, it depends on the university. There are over 4,000 institutions, as you know. So there are, some institutions are looking more at these kinds of things than others are. And of course, if you're competing for a huge scholarship or of some sort, or a huge financial aid package, then these kinds of contributions will probably be more important. All universities will be looking at it, but I think I don't want to discourage the student that's maybe not that outgoing and is doing a million things. It's okay. I mean, there are plenty of universities that would be interested in every student. You just need to find the right fit. I think that's the important thing. It's about fit in the United States, and that's quite unique. It's not get 3 A levels, get 3 A's, and you're in. It's fit for U.S. universities.
And I think this sense of all-rounded students and interests and activities, and I think it makes sense because later on when you actually get into university, I mean, the universities in the US are more flexible with their degrees.
Yes.
We're seeing more liberal arts colleges. We're seeing more interest in such undeclared majors.
Yes,
for example.
of course. Your major doesn't have much to do with your admissions because, as you said, U.S. education is very flexible. So probably, I don't even know the real statistics, but at least half of the students probably change what they're going to study throughout the 4 years of their education. And that's completely understandable. The minute you get there, you can change your field of study. Which is also it's unique to the U.S. The U.S. is one of the few places where you can actually change what you're studying. So the idea is that students experience things, they learn, they see what they're passionate about, and then they create their own, educational journey. Of course, that doesn't mean they're completely flexible. If you're going to study something like engineering, I keep saying engineering, I don't know why, but so a student who chooses to study engineering will still have to take, in those first 2 years of their studies, they'll have to take their core courses in engineering, the mathematics, the engineering courses, whatever. But students also have the opportunity in those first 2 years, no matter what school they go to, no matter what they're studying, in those first 2 years, in addition to your core courses, you have to fulfill other requirements as well and take courses in other fields. So as an engineer, you'll be doing literature, or as a literature student, you'll still be required to do some basic sciences or mathematics. And the reason for this is they want to develop the whole student, that students graduate well-rounded. Because, well, to really function in the real world, you can't just have a special, obviously you have to have specialized knowledge in your field, which you get, but you also have to be able to speak well. You need to be able to maybe understand the government of the country that you're living in. So, and to present projects and make presentations and things like that. So, throughout your education in the U.S., you develop these skills. So you're not doing only coursework in your field, but you're taking other courses which develop skills in other areas, which will become useful to you when you're actually in the workforce and working in, I don't know, Saudi Arabia, for example.
Brilliant.
You get to do, most universities have language requirements. You have to take 1 or 2 languages. Of course, our students usually are exempt from that because they already speak a second language. But, you could take a language like, I don't know, Arabic or, I don't know, something that you've never even thought of, and you'd be able to develop that skill at the same time as you develop your engineering knowledge and things like that. So what happens is in those first 2 years, students often discover different kinds of passions that they didn't know they had. So they thought they liked science, but they actually liked the humanities better, and they change.
They can switch.
And that's completely fine. So the flexibility is the reason why when you apply, what you're going to study doesn't make that much of a difference.
And that's the beauty of applying to the US, that you're going to come into contact with new subjects, different skills and experiences, and that you're able to change direction after experiencing those things.
And it's not boring. I mean, students are not studying if it's business that they want to study, they're not doing business and only business. They're doing a lot of interesting things, other interesting things as well. And even, when I was in university, I remember I had to fulfill PE requirements as well. There were like 1 or 2 PE courses that I had to take. And one of them that I took was ballroom dancing. So in all of your boring, I actually studied business, all of your boring business lessons, you got to do this ballroom dancing, and you got a grade, and and it's a great skill to have as well. Or something else, like I remember taking a philosophy class, which I had never done before. So I think that's the beauty of it. That gives you flexibility to also add another subject to study. In Europe, you've got these combined degree programs, or you can do business and German, or I don't know what and what. But they're already combined for you. In the U.S., because of the flexible system, students can combine whatever they want. Whatever, if you love economics and mathematics, you can combine them.
They can build it as they go along.
Yeah.
What about SATs? I mean, since COVID, we've seen that a lot of universities have become test optional regarding SATs. Is that something that you believe is going to stay much longer, or?
Unfortunately, this past year, we've seen some. Most schools are test optional still, but some of those schools that dropped the SAT requirement or made it optional during the pandemic are starting to require it again. Most universities still don't make it mandatory. But the general advice that we have to students is, if you're aiming for a very competitive university, or if you need a very large scholarship of some sort, take the SAT as well, as it can strengthen your application. Plus, some universities, even though they don't require the SAT for admissions purposes, they might have a special scholarship which does require it.
Okay.
So if you want to have more options, it's nice to have the SAT. But if you don't want to take it, there are plenty of options like that as well.
Yeah, students who are aiming for top schools and Ivy League schools, would you say, what kind of SAT score, in your opinion?
There's no minimum cutoff score. Yeah. But if you look on every university's website, they always publish the profile of the students that they just accepted. And so when you're looking at those kinds of universities, you'll notice that
1,500?
Generally.
1,500 roughly?
Generally. But that said, I've had students who've gotten into those universities without that score.
So
slightly lower, because they had something interesting about them. As I said, U.S. admissions is holistic. Yeah. So, I think it's not like straightforward for the U.S., but it's also, interesting that, all these elements go into the admissions process. And I think it gives others, you don't have to have 1600 SAT to get in. There are other things that they look at.
Yeah.
But you do have to be unique. You have to have something interesting about you. And that's how they, because I had mentioned the extracurriculars, but also the essay.
That was my next question.
Sorry,
the essay.
I forgot to mention that.
The essay is something that students spend a significant amount of time writing.
Yeah.
I mean, key parts of the application process. Any advice about the essay?
Yeah, it's not the same as a European one, that's for sure, because the European one is just about what you want to study. They don't necessarily care about what you want to study. I mean, unless you want to talk about it and you're super passionate about it, you can. But for the U.S. application, it's more of a way for you to display your unique personality and what's interesting and about you, what you care about, your values. And it's the only part. You have to I think the advice to students is think of it as the interview. That's the only part where they can learn truly who you are.
Who you are.
The rest of the application, you've got the grades. Yes, you put in the activities, which also shows them what you're interested in and, your values and your, those kinds of things and what you care about. But the essay is your story. So
I think story is the key word because I love the way that's how I describe it to students. I mean, your US essay, Common Up essay, writes it like a story, whereas your European essays for European universities, it's motivational letter, it's personal statements, it's more structured.
Why do you want to study something?
Exactly. Yeah. But the US, it's a story.
They're trying to understand who you are, basically, and they don't have a lot of time to read these things. You have to, I mean, of course they spend time on it, but some universities get 30, 40,000 applications. Some have 2 or 3, but generally universities have lots of applications. And so it should be easy to read for that person because they want to look at it and understand who you are. Some students think it's an academic essay and they have to display their knowledge of vocabulary and their knowledge in a field, like using big words. But the harder it is to read, the harder for us, the harder it is for them as well. And they may not understand what your message is. So it should be like a story. It should be fun. They should be, as soon as they read that first line, they should be, wow, the student is interesting. Let me see what this is going to lead to. What am I going to learn about this student? They should be excited about you after reading your essay. As you said, definitely a story.
What would you say about early action versus early decision applications?
As you know, early decision is binding. Early action is not. I always suggest applying early, but that's only if a student is prepared to apply early. So for early action, which is not binding, you apply in November and you get your admission decision probably in January, but you have lots of time to think about it and it's not binding. You don't have to necessarily go there. It's still a good idea to apply early action because you're one of the first applications that they get. And, if they're interested in you, then they might, offer you a scholarship of some sort or admit you because they still have lots of places. But that's only for the student who is prepared by November with all of their, applications. If the application is ready, they've written their essay, they can get in financial aid documents by then. If the school requires the SAT, if they've done it, if everything is ready by November, sure, why not apply early action? But if you're not ready and you don't feel like you're portraying your best self, then wait and apply regular. It's not going to be a huge difference between early action and regular decision. But early action and regular decision. But early decision is different because you are making a commitment to that one university. You can only apply to one school as an early decision candidate because you're signing a contract basically saying, if you accept me, I'm coming there. Generally, early decision rates, admissions rates can be higher. But again, sometimes the early decision applicant pool is very competitive. And it's also a matter of, do you really want to go to that school? Can you drop everything? It's not only dropping everything in the U.S., it's dropping everything around the world and committing to one university in November. If a student is that passionate about going to that university, and they're ready to submit an application, definitely go for it. But they have to be sure that they want to go to that university. If they're not sure, they can still apply early if they have the early action deadline. But if they don't have the early action deadline, then they can just wait till regular decision.
Regular.
That's fine as well.
Do internships and summer programs help with student applications?
Well, definitely. It shows interest. It shows passion. It also helps the student understand what they want to do. I think those kinds of programs, at least this is my own opinion, I think it's more, they should think about it for themselves. Like, what are they going to gain from it? If they get selected for a competitive, prestigious summer program and they get a scholarship for it, of course, that's an award. That means that, there was something interesting about that student. So it's good for them to use those kinds of things on the application. And any summer program that they participate in, I think they can understand, gives them, an opportunity to learn more about whatever it is they're learning at that summer school or whatever.
Would you put that under the list of activities? The summer program?
You could. I'm just thinking how, if it's like a summer program, you could put the number of hours you spent on it. But if you were selected, like for Tech Girls or some kind of scholarship program, you can put it under awards if you wanted to.
Okay. Are there any scholarship opportunities that are a little bit under the radar that we could inform students about? Any financial aid opportunities that you're aware of, maybe?
Well, there are no particular pots of money for Cypriots, apart from, unfortunately, there isn't a scholarship program from Cyprus that I know of. There was the Cyprus Children's Fund in the United States. I think it's an organization funded by Cypriots, and they were at one point offering scholarships, small scholarships. I don't know if they're still doing that. American University has a scholarship for a Cypriot student. Once every 2-3 years, they give a full tuition scholarship, which is very generous and a great school. And it's a great
I'm proud to say that our student received that last year.
Oh, yay. She's there?
She's there now.
Perfect.
She's in year
she's
one.
the candidate. Okay, I
Yes.
remember Evelyn was mentioned. She retired, by the way.
I know.
Evelyn. Oh, it's so. I hope someone takes on that scholarship now. And
That's a great opportunity for students.
Yeah.
I think we have 2 students who received that scholarship.
Excellent. So hopefully they're not the last either. Apart from that, unfortunately, apart from the government funding and things like that, there's nothing particular for Cypriots. But I don't think that they should be discouraged by that. Universities like to see different students. They love to see, students from applying from all kinds around the world. My advice, though, is I think students sometimes make, they say, if I don't get into those Ivy Leagues, I'm not going to the United States. And they don't have an open mind. When you are like the first Cypriot applying to a university somewhere around the United States, and it's their first applicant from Cyprus, that alone will make you stand out. And if you're a great student at the same time, then that gives you an advantage. So I think, there aren't a lot of scholarships particularly for Cypriots, but I'm sure there are lots of U.S. universities that would love to have Cypriot students, as long as the students have an open mind and are okay with applying all over the U.S. and not just those 5 or 6 schools that they've heard of.
So they like diversity amongst their student body.
Of course. Because that adds to the education. Students share perspectives, their ideas. They learn from one another. The professors learn from the students as well. So having, all kinds of students in the class makes it more richer, I think, the learning environment.
So what would you say is your favorite college campus?
Oh, no.
Do you have a favorite?
No, because every campus that I visit, I've loved. I think they're great. I think that's another thing that's a reason why students should think about the U.S. is because you know how it is in Europe. There are no dormitories, no campus life. In the U.S., a lot of universities have these beautiful, campuses in forests, greenery. Some that are in big cities, but the dormitories, the residence halls, everything is under one kind of in one area. So I think it enriches your experience. You have that college university life. Whereas, if you're somewhere in Europe in a big city, you're kind of going home and going to school. You're like us going to work and you don't get a lot of that student experience. And also I know from my own relatives that, when you go to Europe, cooking for yourself is so much trouble. Having your cafeteria and your food and your meal plan in the U.S., I think that makes it a lot easier for the student. That's also something that they should notice, though, that the cost that they see online, it's like for total expenses, meaning not only the university, but the meals that I'm talking about, the dormitories, the residence halls. Whereas when you look at cost in Europe, it's only the tuition. They don't ever factor in the living expenses. But the reason why U.S. The price tag that they first see when they look at it in the U.S. is because it's all inclusive, even health insurance.
Is that for all university
Yes.
websites, would you say?
Yeah, because all students, when they're applying for their visas, they have to show that they can cover the whole thing. And plus, it's everyone should know how much they're going to pay for their child. Yeah. And they do eat on campus, and there are residence halls. So, yeah, the prices that are listed include everything, even down to books and things like that. So, oftentimes
that's important. That's an important factor to keep in mind when you're looking at the price tag, as you've said.
When you're comparing
to European universities.
Yeah, someone yesterday was saying, I got admitted by this university in a European country, which is private, so it's about 20,000 euros. And he's like, well, if I don't get into these Ivy Leagues, then I won't go to the U.S. because it's just so expensive. And I was just, wait a minute, you've just told me about this university, which is about 20,000 euros, but you haven't factored in the living expenses. So when you actually compare the schools and the other, opportunities that you would have in the U.S., it's actually not that different.
Well, if you estimate the accommodation to be roughly 10,000 a year,
at least, yeah.
And then, like you said, there's the 3 meals a day.
Yeah.
And books.
Yeah. And then all of, the bus transportation, because you're probably not living close to campus. So there, yeah. I'm not going to say that it's going to be cheap in the U.S., but it's often comparable. Yeah. And the quality of the education that you're going to get, the opportunities, the hands-on experiences, the flexibility, all of that is, I think, would make it worth it. It's not going to be free, but definitely worth it, and could be comparable to European university.
I'm looking forward to the conference.
Yes, IACAC.
In July.
You're going to IACAC. Yeah,
I'm going.
It's Northeastern.
Northeastern
yeah,
University.
That's okay. So you asked me about campuses. Boston is a lovely, amazing place to study. It's like one huge university campus. There are so many universities there. Take advantage of the campus tours, and post conference. I don't know. Have you been looking at what's available?
I've looked at what's available. I will go before the conference starts.
Do you know what tours you're applying for?
Not yet. They haven't sent out the list yet.
Look at keep checking their website, because sometimes you have to apply for them.
Yeah, no, I will do. As soon as that becomes available, I'm quite excited.
There's one bus tour that takes you lots of places. I don't know where they're going to take you this year, but if you can get on that one, that would take you to a maximum number of campuses, I think. That's a great idea, a great opportunity. It's huge, but the conference itself is huge, but it's for counseling, and I really love that one. I think you'll have a great time. I like Northeastern as well.
So you're not coming then this year? Oh, it's a shame.
Funding-wise, I think, it's going to be a pass this year, but you will have fun.
I'm looking forward to it.
But another note, you don't have to go to Boston to have a wonderful education and time in the United States. I myself studied in North Carolina. Students that are all over the United States, everyone that goes somewhere in the U.S. is always happy, generally, let's say. So you don't have to necessarily be in those big cities to have an amazing experience or an amazing education.
Definitely. Sometimes
you'll find people think that the best professors are only at those 5-6 universities, but you'll have a Nobel laureate somewhere in the middle of the United States at a university maybe you didn't even know about. So as I said, have an open mind. I think the students should have an open mind, consider going to different states. There are a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, my final question was going to be, what advice do you have for students who are applying to the U.S.? But I think you've covered
it.
I think
there. Oh, okay, yeah. So keep an open mind. The U.S. is an option. Please don't just look at the sticker price and dismiss it. Every year, lots of Cypriot students and international students from all over the world, they go to the United States. Just give it a try. Have an open mind. Have it as an option. And you're so lucky that you have this amazing counselor here who's going to the US to visit campuses for you as well. But yeah, it's definitely an option. Yeah, okay, keep your European applications going as well, just to, to have a safety option. But try the US. You might just be pleasantly surprised.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Gulsen.
Thank you. This was wonderful.
The info, you've enlightened us, and I'm sure, and the viewers as well.
I hope so.
Thank you. And for your continued support to the GC School Careers Department as well.
I'm here if you guys need me. You, the students, anyone, if you have questions, I'm always around virtually.
We will continue to contact you and communicate with you. Thank you so much. And we're following you on social media, so we're aware of all of the activities that you're organizing.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. Thank you to our viewers. And that's it for today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Brilliant. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.